Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. My name is Ken Shreve, joined today by our news editor, Ed Carson. And on today's show, we're going to talk about, well, another record high for the Nasdaq composite, another record closing high for the S&P 500 as the two-day Federal Reserve meeting got underway today. We'll get that policy statement tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Before we get into all that, let's go over to Ed, and he's got three stocks to watch.
Well, we definitely want to be taking a look at Apple, which was clearly the stock of the day. Also want to take a look at Arista Networks and Lam Research.
Okay, very good. Well, we'll start here with the Nasdaq composite. Ends near its session high for a gain of 0.9%. Last I checked, we had slightly lower volume compared to Monday, but overall, this seemed to be a session, Ed, that was dominated by Apple, because when you look beneath the surface on the Nasdaq, maybe some chip leadership here and there, maybe some software stocks, but it was all about Apple.
Apple's just a gigantic component. We'll take a look at that later. But another positive is that once again, for like the fourth time or maybe like the sixth or seventh time in the last 8 days or so, we closed near the highs. And so that's been a positive, sort of weakish opens, strong closes. It's not every single day, but most days. And that's just a bullish tend to it. Like there was definitely, it looked weaker, like the NASDAQ opened lower. Some of the indexes were down more than 1%, and a lot of them came off those lows. So, it's definitely a split market, but it was nice to see this action. The S&P 500 also just eked out to a record close, I believe. I mean, by less than a point. It may not even be showing up here yet on this because it was, right in there, but just getting above. So, that's showing it's not just one or two stocks, but nice action, sort of an outside day to a few recent days. So plenty of things that are working, plenty of things that are not.
Well, it's pretty amazing. It does look like a record high for the S&P 500 here. I guess the main question I have is the market seems to be optimistic, pricing in good news. Is it as simple as the market's pricing in maybe a soft landing for the economy? Last I checked, there's still concerns about interest rates and inflation, and the Fed's got a tough job ahead of it. What's the market so optimistic about here?
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, you take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield, and that came down today, and there was a drop intraday. Don't know why it happened, but it definitely, accelerated losses, in the early afternoon, because it was down the whole day, but it was sort of creeping up, and then boom, came down. Don't know why that was, but if you go back to the daily, you can see that we've, the last few weeks, there's been some up and downs, but we are way off the highs from April, and we're highs off the highs from a couple weeks ago. So that I think has been a factor. We're starting to creep towards, but it is we're only looking at the Fed outcome tomorrow will be really important. I mean, the markets are basically expecting sort of a toss-up for a rate cut in September, a toss-up between whether 1 or 2 year-end. Tomorrow we get the CPI, then a few hours later we get the Fed, and they're going to give their outlook on things. So, if the Fed only says, hey, we're only going to cut rate once, maybe, then maybe some of the good feelings go away. But it is interesting how well the market has reacted. At least say the Nasdaq and the S&P.
Yeah, and you did say we get the dot plot tomorrow, which is basically all the committee members' projections of where they see, the Fed funds rate by the end of the year. So there's a chance you're saying that maybe they're ratcheting down their expectations for rate cuts. That's what we could see in the dot plot.
Well, we're almost certainly going to. It was narrowly for 3 cuts back in March. Now it seems like it's going to be maybe 2, and it could only be 1. I think that's the concern.
Gotcha. All right. Well, the two indexes that are lagging at this point is the Dow Jones Industrial Average. This index was down 1.1% intraday, but closed near its high. We did have some weakness in financial stocks today. I saw that J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, and American Express were some of the worst performers in the Dow today, and small caps also recovered losses. I think those Russell 2000 was down almost 1.2%, maybe 1.3% intraday. That closed with a loss of about 0.6 of a
And
percent.
actually, I
So that
think the
closed.
loss might be less. If for some reason there's a discrepancy between IWM and Zero Rust, the actual index.
I see.
I know that one hasn't, isn't up to date yet, but I think that's a little less of a loss. But yeah, they're both below their 50-day line, the Dow and the Russells, but they're not plunging below it like it started to look like they were going to. This morning, it's like, oh boy, they're starting to lose sight of the 50-day. But really like to see them at least just lag instead of just lose, at least
Yeah,
get into
yeah.
laggard status.
Well, clearly the strength in the market right now is with the Nasdaq Composite and the S&P 500. It was ironic to see, even though the Dow did rally off its lows, the best performing stock was Apple, even though you did have some underlying weakness in the blue chip index. So why don't we go over and take a look at Apple and talk about what looks like just an enormous technical breakout here.
Yeah, really huge move. I mean, for a company this size and one that, hasn't had that much growth. It's just sort of like really waking up. You don't expect that from Apple anymore so much. This is a day two reaction. We talk about a day two reaction to the Fed. We might get one move on the Fed and then the next day the other way. Apple fell yesterday on its AI announcements, and that came after a big run up. So there was a lot of thinking. It's like, Apple basically said what we expected, and it wasn't that much of a surprise. I mean, it wasn't a bad loss yesterday, but today, well, somebody decided that they liked what Apple had to say after a good night's sleep, clearing that base, clearing really this whole long consolidation going basically almost a year, strong volume. I think the concern is that it's pretty far above the 50-day, 10-week line, and
Mm-hmm.
given that it's like, and the fundamentals, yeah, you might think, maybe the bet is that AI will revive growth, but that could be down the road and we'll have to see. But really a lot of excitement. You can just, again, would have been nice to be grabbing in there. Maybe an investor could say, I'm going to wait to see if it pauses, forms a handle or some kind of pause here. But really good to see this action.
Well, when you see a move like this, you almost have to think the market is be optimistic about improving fundamentals down the line. And Apple did say that in order to take advantage of this Apple intelligence, you're going to need an absolute minimum of an Apple or an iPhone 15 with that M1 chip. And I know I'm out of luck there because I've got the 14 Pro Max. But I mean, is there? Can you get a handle on improving fundamentals here? Is this something that really could be a needle mover for Apple? I heard Gene Munster on CNBC yesterday. He was pretty bullish on this Apple Intelligence announcement yesterday.
Yeah, he often is pretty bullish on a few of those big growth names, and it'll be interesting. And look, they need something to also, and particularly in places like China, where it isn't dominant, and like it's been really losing, even just holding its own there would be positive after some really weak times. So yeah, I haven't really seen the numbers. It'll be interesting to see how this one goes, but it's back in the race. It's back above 3 trillion. In that hunt again, above Nvidia. So some super mega caps are really working right now.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the people that are bullish on this stock market, we're very happy to see that move in Apple, to just see a widely held name like this making the percentage gain that it did in the volume that it did too. So very, very impressive for Apple. All right, let's move on and talk about ANET, Arista Networks. This one also looked like it, gave a buy signal. Relative strength line is still off highs a little bit, but it's kind of floating around this consolidation that it recently tried to break out of. Looks like a decent technical picture here with pretty good fundamentals too.
Yeah, the fundamentals have been pretty strong for this one for a while. It's slowing a little bit, but that's after some really big gains. Look, it broke above the last several days, broke above the 300 level. Broke above the 21-day line. There's a trend line you can draw. So those are all reasons. And over the last couple of weeks, it's found support around the 50-day, 10-week line. So there's a lot of things that it showed there. You could also use this. You could have used this as a place to start a position, and then wait to see. Well, let's see what the Fed does. Let's see if we can get above the old buy point of 307.74, which is still valid. I mean, didn't quite. That's not invalid. So, but this was nice action to see. David Ryan was going over this name and a lot of other stocks that are pulling back, because you see, as with Arista, a lot of stocks will break out and then they'll come down, and then sometimes they keep faltering, but sometimes they find support and offered opportunities. And that's sort of been how the market has been favoring things lately.
Two big customers of Arista, very big customers, would be Microsoft and Meta Platforms, I believe. So they're doing a lot of
Another one
business.
is Oracle, and we'll talk about that a little later, I think, as
Okay,
well.
we got Oracle, one of three software giants reporting earnings this week. We'll check on Oracle in just a little bit, but let's move on and check out the final stock here. That's going to be Lam Research and the Chip Equipment Group. LRCX will be the symbol here. What are you seeing with Lam Research?
Well, depending how you interpret it, you could have treated 99266 as a handle or just an early entry. I mean, this is a flat base, but if you want to treat it like a cup with handle, it's in a buy zone. I mean, if you treat it that way, and certainly you could have bought it there from an early there. So it held Monday's move above that level. At this point, you might say, you know what, I'm just going to wait to see if we can get above 1,000 and this the top of the base and the Fed, waiting a few hours. At this point, I think just in general, we want to wait. You might want to wait on most buys until the Fed is through. But this is showing some strength. There's a few other chip names that are showing strength, chip equipment names that are showing strength, sort of turnaround. The fundamentals aren't really there, but that's the way chip equipment is that it takes a while, and then the fundamentals come after the stock has rebounded for quite a while as people anticipate those orders, anticipate those things coming in.
Yeah, a lot of these chip equipment firms have been talking about better times ahead, the second half of this year and even out into 2025. So that's why you might look at recent earnings and sales. Like you said, a very cyclical business, and sometimes it's great buying these things when fundamentals don't look so good because growth is expected to ramp up in coming quarters. So, all right, well, I appreciate the insight, Ed. There's three more stocks that are acting well in this bull market. Again, the Fed decision on interest rates will be tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Before the open tomorrow, latest reading from the Consumer Price Index, I think year over year, core prices expected to be up 3.5%. That would be down just a little bit from 3.6% in April. So we'll see how the market reacts to that, and of course how the market reacts to that policy statement tomorrow. But we are.
Could we also go to Oracle, because there was
Yeah,
interesting
that's right.
news there.
Totally forgot
Oracle
about Oracle.
just reported after the close, and what's interesting, their numbers weren't good. Their numbers, their earnings weren't good. Their revenue wasn't good. Also, and something that may not be great for Arista is that their capital spending wasn't great. But why is it surging? Surging to above the top of this buy point. You could just argue that 126, 127 is a buy area right there. What's happening? Well, they announced some deals, AI deals with Google and with OpenAI. So they're going to be doing, I don't know all the details. They're going to bring its database to Google's cloud, and OpenAI is going to use Oracle's public cloud. I mean, OpenAI probably also uses Microsoft, I can only imagine, given their alliance. But that's something that's interesting because Oracle has long-term sort of, like Larry Ellison has relationships with Elon Musk, and there's an XAI relationship with maybe Oracle, but if nothing else, they're getting a lot of customers. So that's a positive. So that's really moving after hours.
That is really something. The stock is up close to 8%, so it's still sort of an AI-driven market here. We still have NVIDIA. Everybody waiting for NVIDIA to come in and pull back, but NVIDIA keeps just trading tightly near highs. So this is reasons to be optimistic about this uptrend. And but again, we just have to take the action day by day. But we're in a strong market right now with a lot of stocks acting well, and I'm sure on IBD Live tomorrow, Oracle will get top billing. We'll talk about that earnings report and what looks like could be yet another breakout after Apple today. So if you haven't had a chance to check out IBD Live, you can do that at investors.com/IBD Live. And Ed, appreciate your insight as always. And yeah, we'll see you back here tomorrow after the close for another Stock Market Today video. Thanks for watching, everybody.